your daughtership, puts things back in proper relationship. And when that relationship no longer finds in you any objection, the sense of difference between father and son fades, father and daughter fades, and it becomes father. Do you disappear? No. Now you are the Father in expression, with nothing blocking the Father's expression, as Himself right where each one of you is. And so the experience of being becomes more specific, more full. As I've said, everything that you're already aware of becomes more meaningful because nothing of what it is in its totality is escaping your attention any longer. Continuing or repeating, self-esteem in ego terms means nothing more than that the ego has deluded itself into accepting its reality and is therefore temporarily less predatory. This so-called self-esteem, this, quote, self-esteem, unquote, is always vulnerable to stress, a term which actually refers to a condition in which the delusion of the ego's reality is threatened. It really is funny. The delusion of the ego's reality is threatened. This produces either ego deflation or ego inflation, resulting in either withdrawal or attack. And you know what? Even withdrawal is an attack. When you withdraw into self-pity, you're saying, look what you did to me. Look what you're doing to me. The way you're treating me is causing me to not want to do anything at all. That's attack. Even withdrawal is attack. The ego, in other words, this picture that you have of yourself that you believe and you govern yourself according to, lives by comparisons. Why does it live by comparisons? It lives by comparisons because it has no stable, ever-present grounding to rely upon, because it has disowned that which is stable, uninterruptible, eternal. This means that equality is beyond its grasp, and charity becomes impossible. The ego never gives out of abundance. I never do anything for nothing, it says. Again, the ego never gives out of abundance because it was made as a substitute for it. That is why the concept of getting arose in the ego's thought system. All appetites are getting mechanisms, representing the ego's need to confirm itself. Okay, again, let's bring it home. All appetites are getting mechanisms representing your need to confirm yourself when you are in a constant act of denying who you really are, the Christ. Continuing, this is as true of bodily appetites as it is of the so-called higher ego needs. Bodily appetites are not physical in origin. Why? Because nothing's physical in origin. The ego regards the body as its home and does try to satisfy itself through the body. But the idea that this is possible is a decision of the ego, which is completely confused about what is really possible. This accounts for its erratic nature. See, it's the idea that this is possible that goes on when you're dinging around in your own mind and never connecting with what a thing really is, or who another really is, or who you really are. It's all happening in terms of ideas, fantastic ideas. And when I use the word fantastic, it's always related to fantasy, never to awesome wonder. The ego, continuing, the ego believes it is completely on its own. This is me. It chooses to believe that. Its whole reason for creating itself was so that it could try to play with the experience of doing something on its own. The ego is a deluded state of independence. Again, continuing, the ego believes it is completely on its own, which is merely another way of describing how it originated. It originated through an act of belief. You see? Can it be said any more clearly that the way you're looking at yourself and your world at this point is nothing more than a set of beliefs built upon an initial belief that you could do something on your own? Therefore, awakening, correction, is always a matter and only a matter of abandoning your commitment to a belief. To, let us say, a belief that you're a body, to a belief that cancer can kill your body, to a belief that you are vulnerable to sickness and death, the belief that you are a mortal, a little physical body, living on a physical planet in the middle of a physical universe that is nothing more than a process of physical evolution, and so on. But all of those beliefs are built upon one fundamental belief, and that is that you are capable of acting on your own. Therefore, the solution to every one of the problems you believe you have is in abandoning the primary belief that you have the capacity to be creative on your own. And how do you do that? By saying, not uncle, but Father, I yield to you. Father, I want to know the truth as you are being it. Father, I want to understand how it is that I am your son or your daughter, so that I might understand how it is that I am nothing otherwise, so that I will find no invitation, no temptation to explore the possibility of being something without you. Continuing and repeating, the ego believes it is completely on its own, which is merely another way of describing how it originated. In other words, by believing that it's completely on its own. This is such a fearful state that it can only turn to other egos and try to unite with them in a feeble attempt at identification, or attack them in an equally feeble show of strength. It is not free, however, to consider the validity of the premise itself, because this premise is its foundation. Belief. That isn't here, the word belief. Continuing, the ego is the belief of the mind that it is completely on its own. Its ceaseless attempts to gain the soul's acknowledgement and thus to establish its own existence are utterly useless. Another simple truth. Its ceaseless attempts to gain the soul's acknowledgement and thus to establish its own existence are utterly useless. And the wonderful news is that all that's necessary to wake up, to come back into your right mind, is to stop doing what's useless. You aren't required to do more than you're doing. You're required to do less than you're doing. Boring. Doesn't sound like much fun to me. Doesn't sound very exciting to me. Sounds like too much damn peace to me. What am I going to do? Float around in pink clouds strumming a harp? No. Doing less than you're doing will first of all cause you to experience no more conflict, no more threat, no more fear. It will cause you to feel peace. It will cause you to look at a thing without inserting your definition between you and that thing. And it means that all that you're already aware of, as I said before, will become illuminated with its divinity. And you will experience it. And the fullness of being will consume you. And put you in a constant conscious state of appreciation and gratitude, so that everything that you do glorifies God. Oh, there you go again. Yep, gonna be floating in the clouds, strumming the harp and singing praises. Boring. No. when you see a beautiful rose, when you see something that is especially exquisite, you almost gasp with acknowledgement of its beauty. It's not boring. And because you recognize its beauty, you're able to be present with it so much more than you're willing to be present with something that doesn't catch your attention and isn't as beautiful. To be constantly glorifying God is to constantly be in a state of awe, but not an awe that incapacitates you, not an awe that keeps you from engaging in communication, communion, and being active together. To be constantly glorifying God means that you are no longer having to engage in defending your picture of yourself, and it means no longer having to engage in teaching everyone else who you are so that they might believe it too, and confirm your reality to yourself endlessly. Because this is an endless task you have taken on yourself. Because since this picture of you isn't real, you are going to have to forever teach it. And you are going to have to forever reinforce it. And you're going to have to forever defend it until you finally realize that you're doing something absolutely useless. And it's depriving you of the joy of finding God in everything and experiencing meaning that you cannot in any way comprehend from the standpoint of your even greatest imagination. Enough said for today. Ain't it wonderful, are the words I will leave you with. I love you.